Hello viewers, welcome to ET Studio Conversations. The topic is Talent Intelligence, the next competitive advantage. This show is brought to you by ETHRWorld and Konverz.AI. In a world where the half-life of skills is shrinking and disruption is constant, organizations can no longer rely on traditional workforce planning. They need sharper, data-driven visibility into their people. Talent intelligence has emerged as a new competitive advantage, helping leaders uncover hidden skills, predict future needs, and align talent strategy with business ambition. To build on this context, let me invite three titans from the industry. Please join me in welcoming Sandeep Girotra, CHRO of DCM Shriram, Divya Mohan, CHRO of Insurance Dekho, and Lokesh Nigam, CEO of Konverz.AI. And I'm Pooja Bothra. I'll be moderating this discussion. Let me start with you, Sandeep. Let me ask you, the longevity of skills are shrinking rapidly. How is this trend forcing you to look at workforce planning with talent intelligence at the core?
No, thanks a lot, first of all, inviting me here. Look, it's a very, very tropical topic. There's no doubt about it. The fact that skills have changed, they have changed massively in the last 5 years or so, or maybe a little bit more. And I keep giving this example to a lot of people. From a time when we used to do listen to music on LP to now Bluetooth, I think life has changed quite a bit. And it's kind of the change has rapidly moved itself in an area wherein we don't know what's going to happen next. Now, given that scenario, HR has traditionally been looking at, how do you build skills for today and maybe tomorrow. But I guess we'll have to start looking at what will happen in the next 3 to 4 years, wherein we don't even know what will happen in 3-4 years. I remember about 3-4 years ago when such kind of discussions would happen, we would talk about work from home, flexible work arrangements. Then came another topic about moonlighting. So we started talking about moonlighting, from working from home to working for many companies and all that stuff. Now the discussion has moved into AI, how AI is going to change the lives of people. I'm sure, by the time that I come here next, we're going to be talking about something else. So HR and people, leaders who are able to anticipate what may happen in the future, in the near future and also in about 3 to 4 years, are the ones who will be able to plan the workforce much better. So what we have done, or what we always say, is that don't hire people for today, hire people for the next 3-4 years, because by the time you get those people in, the ones that you've hired for today, the skills are going to be obsolete. So look for your competency framework, those jargons of HR, competency framework, capability networks. You got to build for at least about 3 to 4 years hence, and then start fitting in your people, do assessments where they fit in today or not, and then take those decisions of build, buy, borrow, whatever that you have to take. But don't look at today, because that's going to be very, very short term. So that's something that we all have to be cognizant of.
Very important point shared by Sandeep, and I totally agree. The only thing constant today for the business world is uncertainty. We don't know which way AI automation is going to go and what skills will be relevant tomorrow. Building this point, Divya, I'd like to ask you that can you share some examples globally, and since we're talking about talent intelligence today, how globally are organizations using talent intelligence to predict workforce planning?
Thank you for having me here. First of all, very valid points put forth by Sandeep, and picking on from where he ended. I think what's also happening is that it's not just the market, the customers, the employees who are evolving, the skills are also evolving. What I'm experiencing and what I'm also hearing from a lot of HR leaders and CXOs is that skill splitting is happening at a much higher speed than the change itself. Now, what does skill splitting mean? I mean, today in my organization, and I'm sure in our organizations, we would have categorized jobs as far as the designation is concerned. So we'll have one, let's take an example of a data analyst. If there's a data analyst job, tomorrow data analyst is just the job, but there are going to be 20 more micro skill sets which are going to make up the job of that analyst. So how do we transition from a job-based nomenclature to a skill-based thing? I think that is the first thing which a lot of developed organizations which are much ahead in terms of the people capability maturity model are doing. They are not just defining jobs, they are defining the skills which make up. And it's almost like, a skill passport. It's almost like a skill passport which is verified and which is portable and which can be used between jobs in a company, or maybe even used between jobs, as in when you move jobs. Yeah. So it's almost as dynamic as that. So the entire shift is from saying that this is my role to this is the skill set that I bring in. And I think that's what companies are doing. And I feel the second thing which companies are doing is also using skills to identify job adjacencies. Today's generation is different from what it was earlier, and therefore they come with an added expectation of being worked on from a skill perspective, from an experience perspective. And to create job opportunities within the company, you need to know what are the skill sets that they bring. Because today they may be an analyst, but can they move into a machine learning job? Because there is an overlap of almost about 60-70% in those two jobs. So breaking it down to skills and then enabling the build, buy, borrow, bounce framework, I think that is what is happening today in a lot of evolved companies.
Very interesting. So when we talk about talent intelligence, it pivots around data. And data, as we understand, is everywhere, but it's fragmented. What are those barriers that kind of, come in the way of using data intelligence to help in your workforce planning? Lokesh, you'd like to take that?
I think, first of all, thank you so much for having me here, Pooja. The role and skills both are becoming dynamic. And when we are looking at roles and skills from a future point of view or from a horizontal point of view in terms of deploying skills into different roles, what is required is an engine which can predict some of these things because of the dynamic nature of roles and skills. So roles are much more fluid today. The organizations are not straitjacketed so all of us have studied organization science and seen that, how straitjacketed and bureaucratic organizations are created. But that doesn't stand anymore actually. Even from the point of view of networked organizations doesn't exist anymore. It's more dynamic and continuously evolving based on what are the realities of the organization. So both role and skills being of dynamic nature is the fundamental reality that we are going to deal with. And skills are going to be required at a much higher speed by the people who work in different roles in organizations. How do we make sure that they possess those skills? So important thing is not the work that I have actually, it's do I have people to do that kind of work and do it with speed, because are people able to create human AI collaboration? Are people able to use those AI tools to actually do their work faster? Even in consulting and in AI, in the domain I work in, I have seen that the work that could be done in 100 hours can be done in 1. In fact, I was doing something in immersive learning with Petronas, which is my client. And we actually help the learning designers to create content that they used to take 3 months in 30 minutes, and with the better quality and all of that. So how do we re-visualize work and how do we take care of this dynamic nature is an important thing. This is where AI is crucial. So can AI help talent intelligence to inform both role as well as skill? So when it comes to role, it's the organizational work and therefore workforce planning. Can AI inform that? Help me predict what kind of work is coming up and what kind of skills I need, and then map the talent. Do they possess those skills or not? And help you create a roadmap which is very speedy. Not like, in old times assessment takes 3 months, 6 months, 9 months. Cannot, so can we bring it to a shorter time horizon? Within a month, I'm able to, predict what is going to come, because anyway, half-life is reducing of skills and maybe it doesn't last even 12 months now, with the advent of AI in the workforce. So that's what I think.
Yeah, I really agree to the point of speed, because today you will have a large chunk of your workforce who will probably leave within a year. So if you're going to take 1 year to map their skills and, put a career path for skilling, it's not going to work. I'll take one more input on this question, Sandeep, and I'd like to ask you same thing. How are you using AI-powered data analytics to predict workforce? Is there barriers you're facing, or you're being able to harness the power of data with AI?
Okay, so I can make some controversial comments here.
Sure.
Yeah, okay. Not so controversial, but see, I think the biggest issue that we have, and we are talking about people over here and people processes, the biggest issue, first of all, that we have is our HR ecosystem itself. The HR folks, at least gone are those days when you interview HR folks and they would say, why do you want to join HR? Because I love people. I at least don't listen to that without using that word. But it hasn't changed much since, I think typically you'll see HR guys not very adept, whatever the right English is, in handling data, because that involves numbers. So for some reason, I find HR guys not very comfortable with numbers, and please pardon me for making that comment. Secondly, our ability to forecast, as I mentioned earlier, forecast and predict what may happen. Instead of using our gut, we are now spending a lot more time looking at the data, which is right. But you've got to superimpose your gut on top of the data that is available. Alone data may not give you anything. 2 plus 2 is 4. Okay, now what do you do with that? But 2 plus 2 is 4, and 4 can be applied in 5 different contexts, and all that is where your intelligence is going to be used. I think that is what HR needs to do. Just an example, we HR guys love to talk about the entire employee life cycle, starting from hiring to retire. Hire to retire is a common word that we love using. But what does that mean? So there is a guy who's going to be responsible for staffing, hiring, and then there is an onboarding person who's going to be different, and then there is a training guy, then a performance management, and then blah, blah, blah. It just rounds up the whole circle, HR operations in between. And they're all collecting the data for, let's say, Pooja. They're collecting data at different points in time. None of that data is talking to each other. The hiring guy will never pass that information, or they don't have the system of passing that information to learning and all that. Just imagine if we had a system wherein when you interviewed, there's an assessment that happened about somebody, and you do psychometric and all that stuff. If that is passed on to the training person, you'll be able to create better learning journeys for that individual, because then it's going to be based on multiple data points that you have. Typically it does not happen. Maybe it's happening now. I know you're about to say that it's happening, which is very good. I've been saying that for some time, that please, for heaven's sake, all the HR folks, we specialize in learning and development, we specialize in staffing, we are HR BPs. For heaven's sake, please start talking to each other. Secondly, I think some of these roles may not exist in the future. All could be replaced by AI. I'm not naming some of those names here or roles here, because I don't want people to start panicking. But clearly, I think if they're intelligent, and they're not only based on artificial intelligence, they're using their natural intelligence, they would know what roles can be replaced. Spend more time on how do you link the dots and build that cognitive capability of building the dots and building some stories around it, which you can use for people. I think those HR guys who develop that capability are the ones who are going to succeed. Otherwise, data is going to subsume, and we all would be in the past.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. These are really visionary insights. Thanks for sharing it. And you started with talking about that one of the main traits for HR leaders was like people's person. So, if you had technologies across hire to retire talking to each other so that you get a dashboard of insights, you can still continue to be a people's person, because, the AI is going to do most of your work, and you need to kind of, show empathy towards your,
let me
bring
just
the
add
human
over here
connect.
For a minute. I have a son who's 20 years old, and if I go and tell him that, hey, listen, I love you and I hug you and I kiss you, he may just tolerate it for once or maybe twice. Third time he's going to shut the door and say, get lost, because they don't want it.
Yeah.
The next gen does not want this, hugs and kiss and love and
conversations.
all that stuff. They want you to understand what they want and then provide a solution. So I think that's really what's about it.
True, very true. Divya, I'd like to ask you that, how does HR collaborate with other C-suite leaders to actually harness the power of talent intelligence?
I think, Pooja, like what Sandeep said, everything begins with mindset. We unfortunately still do not have the mindset which is required to move from the usual, the JDs, the roles, the jobs, the bands, to real skills which are needed for today and for the dynamic future that we have. So I think as the HR fraternity, we first need to begin with adopting a different mindset to it, from talent officers, from training officers to recruitment officers. I think we need to be more like, let's say a skill venture capitalist sorts who all the time is thinking about which skills to invest in, which skills to incubate, which skills to sunset, so that the value of the portfolio is maximized. I think that is how
I like that.
That is how I
Talent venture capital.
see it.
Yeah.
So
I love it.
I think that's the mindset change. The second thing, which is again a no-brainer, is that if HR continues to own skill, talent, whatever, then it hardly can do what is actually the possibility. It needs to co-own with the business leaders, and for that, skills need to be made visible. Today, are skills visible? No. I mean, we show attrition, we show joining, we show competencies, we show learning hours and all of that. But do we actually show, a skill balance sheet of sorts where we tell the business leaders that, hey, this is what we aim to do in the next 6 to 12 months. And these are the clear ready skills that we have sitting in our organization. And these are the skill gaps. And therefore, this is what we need to work on to get that profit or some other metric which the finance, revenue, sales leaders appreciate. So I think we need to marry it with what's in it for them. And if we don't demystify it, then we don't stand a chance of people talking skill instead of the usual metrics that we talk of.
Yeah. No, that's a great analogy, skill venture capital. And, it's like if you put your mind into thinking which skills you need to invest in, the funding, seed A, seed B, whatever those terminology is, then you will also get more, collaboration from your business leaders if you are actually looking into it so minutely. Next, since we're talking about talent intelligence today, so let's see how we can leverage talent intelligence for business advantage, for competitive advantage, so to say. So what is that bold action organizations need to take in the next 1 year to actually, capitalize on talent intelligence? Lokesh?
Thing is that when we talk about talent intelligence and when we look at some of these requirements of HR, challenging the way the way HR function is organized right now. So the first thing that we need to challenge is the workflow itself. So too much of our investment in the last 2 decades has gone into management systems. And management systems are basically workflow management portals, right? So they help you manage a workflow, whatever workflow you decided. In today's time, to create intelligence, do I need a workflow? So workflow was required when people were doing stuff. When I'm AI enabled and AI is doing, let's say in recruitment, it's doing the screening for me, it's doing the assessment for me, it's predicting talent. In talent management, let's say it is giving me career pathing, it's giving me succession, it's giving me IDPs, at the click of the button, somebody does the assessment and the entire thing is available to you to take decisions and work on learning. So do I need those workflow? So I think the first thing that HR leaders need to really think is which workflows to challenge and which workflows to revisualize, given that we have ability to create talent intelligence. Now I am working, for example, again with a very large oil and gas company, where we are trying to create a talent intelligence layer on top of their existing management systems, both in learning as well as in the HRMS. Now, exactly what Sandeep was saying, things don't link. The career data is here and the development data is there and learning system is doing something else. How can I create data lakes? Challenge those workflow systems and create an intelligence layer which gives me real-time intelligence. So intelligence has to be real-time, otherwise it's of no use, right? So real-time information on where to invest on my skills, where to invest in my organization, which areas are suffering more, how do I bring talent there? Those decisions can I take in real time, and that is what is the first thing. The second thing is this aspect of hunch-based decisions, because they are no more relevant, and you can actually get a lot of unbiased data on people if you use technology smartly and take very, very data-based decisions. So that's another thing which in the fraternity, as Sandeep said, is a little bit of a lack. So bring more analysts, so revisualize roles itself. So while you are visualizing the workflow, you revisualize roles. Should I still structure my organization in HR like this, or do I move? How do I create human AI collaboration in everything that I do? And that is what is possibly the next two things which I visualize are very, very important. There are many global organizations which have already embarked, and I think it's slowly seeping in, and tools are available. So today there's no dearth of AI being able to do everything that used to take 6 months, in the HR function, because of the judgment that it requires in, let's say, in assessing. There's a judgment required, right? So I would like to slow that down. I'll try to outsource that judgment, right? Assess people. But now that can be done in seconds, or half an hour. You have all of that information and you can directly move to the decision. So intelligence, informing decision, and this particular thing facilitated by as less workflow and revisualized roles is what I feel is what we should be doing.
Very valuable points there, Lokesh. Divya, one thought that what you would be doing in your organization to leverage talent intelligence.
I think there are two things which will ensure that we succeed in this endeavor. One, I inherently believe and preach that what doesn't get measured doesn't get done. So unless and until we move from a good to have space as far as talent intelligence is concerned to a must have, and bring it up in structured skill reviews with the business so that we can see, measure where we stand in terms of future requirements, it is going to remain a vanity metric. It will not be hard-coded into the organization. Second, I feel that for any initiative to succeed, there needs to be trust within the organization, especially when it comes to anything related to AI. If we don't communicate well and if we don't convey the intention well, you'll have half of the organization thinking that this is some new gimmick run by HR and the business to kind of craft a redundancy exercise, or to do less promotions, or something to relate to the performance cycle. And the managers will think that, oh, judgment is being replaced, because I strongly feel that judgment, it's very difficult to be replaced. That's very core to human beings, and that is a factor of many things and not just data points. So I feel if we work on these two, then we can ensure that we give a great landing to a tool like what we've been discussing in the last 30 minutes.
I think just adding one thing here, that intelligence informs decisions. Decisions are still human.
Yes.
So the moment a decision has to be taken, a judgment has to be made, it has to be human. Intelligence can be done by AI. The second important point is this aspect of trust. So so we talk about AI ethics all the time. The biggest issue there is not so much about usage of somebody's data, but explainability of how the usage is made. So how do I create explainable applications of AI within my HR ecosystem. These two are very critical things, and just
Yeah.
wanted to add on to that.
Sandeep, your thoughts?
Look, I think two things. One, you ask about what should we do very differently in HR, and I think what we should do is, I don't maybe replace it or just scrap the performance management system because the performance management system actually makes you live in today, and because you're only looking at what happened in the last 1 year, and then you're scrap that piece. Then only would you start looking forward at least 2-3 years hence. Second piece, intelligence. We are intelligent people. God has made us better than monkeys. The question is going to be, how do you apply that intellect? If you don't apply it, intelligence could be stored anywhere. I mean, what do I use and how do I use it? So please apply your brains and show your intellect. I think that's important.
Thank you for joining us. I would like to say bold decisions leads to bold actions. And this is what our panel today have actually shown and told us. Thank you for joining us in this wonderful conversation. Thank you.
Thank you.